go inside the Fox Sports 102.9 studio with Chase and Gerhard for WKXX Live.
Happy Thursday. Welcome in to WKXX Live, Fox Sports 102.9. Chase Robinson, Gerhard Mathangani. We are here. We are ready to go. Hopefully you stayed safe most of the day today as some storms blew through. I know here in Rainbow City, lots of rain, lots and lots of rain, thunder and lightning. I know a lot of places across the state saw some hail, but storms moving through the area. But in our listening area, they're all done for the most part. So it's just kind of a one and done for the storms, which is a very good thing. So we can sit back and enjoy the next couple hours. We get to talk sports with you here this afternoon. And as we've been telling you all week, this is our final week. And so, including today, 2 shows left. Tomorrow will be our final show of WKXX Live here on Fox Sports 102.9. Also, tomorrow we will announce to you what you'll be hearing starting Monday here on 102.9. So we will share that with you tomorrow. But again, our final show. And, it comes at a time where we've got a lot to talk about, Gerhard. We got a lot to dive into today, whether it's college basketball, NFL. I'm sure we'll talk college football in there as well. But, on the NFL front, we kind of hit on this yesterday, the possibility of Atlanta being the site of a potential matchup. If the Bills and the Chiefs were to meet in the AFC title game, they want to put it on a neutral field, and Atlanta is finally gonna get a playoff game.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Our buddy Chris Marler just yesterday from the Atlanta area and talked really highly of Mercedes-Benz, and it wasn't until he went to SoFi he said Mercedes is the best, and I think so too. I've been to Mercedes a handful of times as well for different events, and it seems to me that if you're going to do it in a neutral site, number one, you have to go dome. You just can't. I would love to see those two teams, those two great offenses, play in an area where you don't have any weather restrictions on those offenses. So number one is a dome, and then secondly, to bring it down to the south, I think it's a great idea. And Mercedes is first class all the way. And because the Falcons are not going to be playing a playoff game in that building, then you can have that championship game there.
No scheduling conflicts.
No,
there in Mercedes-Benz. Would love to hear from you today, 256-413-1029. That is 256-413-1029. Would love to hear from you today and tomorrow as we get ready to wrap up WKXX Live all together. And so would love to hear from you. Coming up on the show today, Joe Cox from Saturday Down South. He covers college basketball, so we'll talk SEC basketball with Joe Cox coming up at 2:30. Brian Mintz, we'll have our final visit with Brian coming up at 3 o'clock from the Etowah County Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and our final weekly Weiss Lake Fishing Report with Elliot Galt coming up at 3:30 this afternoon. And so we've got a lot to get to. And one cool thing about this time of the year also is we get some of these high school awards coming out. Mm-hmm. And I love these because we always have local players from Northeast Alabama. And this year, no surprise, in Jack Hayes was the 3A back of the year. So for each classification, they give a back of the year and a lineman of the year. And after all the records that were shattered by Jack Hayes, he is the 3A back of the year.
Yeah, this one seems to be a no-brainer. If you're a voter in this poll, I want to see what the actual vote was. I'd be surprised if it wasn't unanimous. Statistically, the best player to ever play high school football in the state of Alabama. And listen when I say that, because let those words sink in. Statistically, the best to ever play football in high school in the state of Alabama. Just an unbelievable career. And because of our proximity to him, we've been able to see and get to know him up close. We've talked to him here on this radio station before. I've talked to him a lot. You've talked to him a lot, both inside and outside of this business. He's a good dude and a great football player, a great competitor. He is one of these guys that I sometimes hate the anomaly or the things that come with sports wherein you have to look at height and weight and all this stuff that's not measurable because he's got all those other attributes to him. But the fact that he's the 3A Back of the Year award winner is a fitting into his career.
It really is. And he was not Mr. Football, and we'll get to who that was in a moment. But I feel like that award definitely could have gone to Jack Hayes as well.
For sure, 100%. And I think that the guy that got it is a deserving guy as well. There was a lot of great prospects this year. The class of 2023, as far as the senior class that played their football season in 2022, they'll graduate this spring. This class was phenomenal. 2 5-stars on one team. The Mr. Football award winner is one of the best players in the entire country. Jack Hayes, who's statistically the best player that we've ever seen play high school football. Like, there are so many different players that could have won the state's ultimate prize. And so I'm sure it was really hard for the voters to come up with the final tally here.
Yes, I'm sure it was. In Class 4A, Northeast Alabama got a sweep of the Back and Lineman of the Year awards. In 4A, Raquez McElderry was the 4A Lineman of the Year from Anniston High School. And then the 4A Back of the Year was Aniana's Fluff Bothwell. Yeah,
this is, obviously, in my opinion, Raquez McElderry is another guy we've talked about and we've seen a lot over the course of the last 2 years. And he's just been really sensational as far as development over the course of the last couple of years. Now going to Alabama, was heavily recruited by Georgia and Kirby Smart. He could pick his litter, and he's one of these guys with a really high upside. So even though he comes to Alabama as a 3-star, he's one of these guys that can develop into one of the top players there in their program. And Fluff Bothwell, I mean, what can you say of him? As good as he was, in some ways, he was almost underrated, as far as undervalued. People in Aniana know about him. We know about him, but I think a lot of people around the state probably don't know as much as they probably should of Fluff Bothwell after an incredible senior season.
Yeah, but he is getting the recognition he deserves as the 4A Back of the Year. McElderry as the Lineman of the Year. He was the guy we followed closely in his recruiting, and he's on campus at Alabama now. He graduated high school early in December and is on campus now in Tuscaloosa. And so very deserving there of the 4A Lineman of the Year, as well as Fluff Bothwell, the 4A Back of the Year. We mentioned Saraland sophomore wide receiver Ryan Williams is Mr. Football for the state of Alabama.
He's an incredible talent, incredible player. I know he's only a sophomore, and people will say a sophomore won Mr. Football, but he's one of these guys that just was unbelievable. Just an incredible season, 88 catches, over 1,600 yards and 24 touchdowns. He also had more than 700 yards and 15 touchdowns rushing the football as well. And then he also threw a touchdown pass and he scored on 2 punt returns. So with the football in his hands, he was dynamic. Whether he was running the ball, catching the ball, or throwing the football, he was great. And so just a super, super talented player that helped lead Saraland to the ultimate prize. And he's one of these guys that he was so dynamic that I understand why the voters went with him, even though he's just a sophomore.
Yeah, and so he's got a very bright future ahead of him as Mr. Football as a sophomore, but very deserving. All these guys who took home their the awards in their respective classifications, very deserving, and so many great players, so many great teams, coaches here in the state of Alabama. That's one thing that I've enjoyed, and I know you as well. Whatever our job was, whether it was back when we did TV, doing this radio show, we get to talk with these coaches. We get to talk with these players, and that's one of my favorite things to do is cover high school sports.
Yeah, it's still when it's the purest. I mean, once you get to the college level, and I'm not disparaging any of them because I love them all, but once you get to the college level, it's just a different layer of the game. It's the same sport. It's just played under different parameters.
Yeah,
you're playing it with the game of recruiting, and you're doing it under the guises of keeping jobs and everything else that goes with college level. On the pro level, it's even worse because you get salary caps and everything else. The high school level is still the last stage of that purity, where you're coaching the guys between your 4 walls. And I know people have a lot of beef with high school. With the way high school is trending right now, and that's a whole different can of worms I won't get into. But to me, it still is at its purest, and that's the reason why I think that we love to cover it and fans love to go to it, because you could celebrate something that you're all a part of, which is that community.
Yeah, for sure. And you see that on Friday nights in high school football stadiums. You see that at the Northeast Regionals up at Jacksonville State.
Right.
And that thing is full, and just about every classification to games. And you think of the Calhoun County tournament, the Etowah County tournament, Marshall County tournament, like people show up to these because they're there to support their community.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you're talking about people who want to be there, the people who are coaching and who are leading. They're teachers in the truest degree. Even if they're not teaching an actual class, most of them are. But even if they're not, they're teachers of the game, teachers of the sport. So we can kind of get convoluted hearing that X coach made this millions of dollars and Jim Harbaugh is about to make $20 million. And you just kind of roll your eyes thinking, oh, well, they're just doing it for the money. Most, if not all, on the high school level are not doing it for the money. I know some get paid handsomely, but most aren't doing it for the money. That's the reason why I love it. And then to watch the growth and development, because you see it skyrocket between maybe ages 10, 11, 12 to where you are when you graduate 15, 16, 17, 18. That scope of time is really important in any teenager's life. We talk to Coach Brian Mintz all the time about the FCA, about how they help and mold and develop people off the field with the FCA programs. And I think football is an extension of all of that. Basketball, softball, baseball, these high school athletics is an extension of all of that. And so to see these kind of the end of the year awards almost has a culmination effect to it as we watch them go. And it feels like it kind of goes in cycles now, and we're going through on another cycle, and you're just appreciative of it every time.
Yeah. So congratulations to all the award winners there for high school football. Big win for the Alabama Crimson Tide last night over Arkansas. We will dive into that coming up next. Joe Cox, columnist for Saturday Down South, will join us to talk SEC basketball at 2:30. All that is ahead. Stick around.
Hi, I'm Dr. Shelley.
WKXX Live, Fox Sports 102.9. Chase and Gerhard with you on a Thursday afternoon. Hope you're having a great day. Made it through the storms, and we're ready to go here. Talk some sports. Joe Cox of Saturday Down South will join us coming up at 2:30. You can give us a call, 256-413-1029. Alabama goes to Fayetteville, Arkansas, into what we imagined would be a hard atmosphere to play in Bud Walton Arena. But Alabama walks away with an 84-69 win over Arkansas.
Yeah, this game was interesting because at halftime we were tied at 33. It looked disgusting.
Yeah,
it just did not look like it didn't look like great basketball. But in the second half, things turned around. Brandon Miller didn't take a single shot in the first half. He comes back in the second half, knocks down a couple 3-pointers, and I think that really turned him on. He felt it. Bama went on an incredible run and really put Arkansas to bed. In the first half, it looked really shaky, but this tells you something really dangerous about this Alabama basketball team, that it's not that they have a light switch, because I think that term gets overused, especially in basketball, but there is something about this team that feels like they can turn something on when they need to, and it felt like yesterday was a perfect example of that against a really good Arkansas team. Yes, they don't have Nick Smith Jr., but Bama's missing one of their top players as well, so it's kind of a wash in that category. But I'll tell you what, this Bama team with each win, they're impressing me more and more because they're showing you they can win in different ways. And that, when you have that in college basketball, you're a dangerous basketball team, especially if you're finding that in the early stages of in the conference season.
Yeah, for sure. And Nate Oates mentioned after the game just what it took to be able to come back and win this game.
Yeah, talked a lot about how his team has really kind of come together and some of the things they had to do, especially in the second half, to get the W.
Tough road win. Our guys showed that they've got some toughness, some character, some grit, can handle some runs and still stay in there. After we beat Houston at Houston, I think our guys had some confidence that we could win anywhere. So I think we snapped a 17-game home winning streak. I think they've been 30 years since they lost to a ranked team as a ranked team. So there's a lot of things that hadn't been done in this building for a while that, our guys did well. We've got a talented group. They did a really good job on Brandon Miller for most of the game, and then he shook loose right at the right time. And I think he's grown up. In the past when he couldn't get a shot, he didn't get shot attempt in the first half. He'd get a little frustrated, but, when they're going to play him like that opens the floor up for everybody else. If they're just going to lock onto him, there's more space on the floor for everybody else, and we were able to take advantage of that. We're missing Amari Burnett. Obviously they're missing Nick. We're both missing a McDonald's All-American. So, our depth's going to get even better when Amari comes back. So I thought our depth tonight really helped us. Both teams got in some foul trouble. And then, I thought we had more point guard play with Sears and Jaden Bradley being able to play it a little bit. So couldn't be more proud of our guys. Continue to get better every game. We just got to keep getting a little bit better every game and staying in this hunt for the SEC championship.
Nate Oates, their post game last night after the win at Arkansas. Eric Musselman, Arkansas head coach, really good coach, really knows how to get his team fired up. Talked a little bit about this loss that he just suffered in Alabama.
Yeah, this was really interesting because keep in mind in the game yesterday, Alabama went to the free throw line 36 times. The previous storyline to that was the fact that Arkansas had a whole bunch of free throws in their previous matchup. And Nate Oates even made a comment about that earlier this week, and it seemed to me that the whistles went the other way around this time in this matchup. The game against Arkansas last year, Bama ended up winning that basketball game by 1. Bama ended up winning yesterday by 15. So it wasn't like the free throws were the decision. Was the factor in that one, but it was a really kind of interesting dynamic there, but between those two teams and the chances they got there, the charity stripe, and see if you can hear him not blame the refs, but call the refs out a little bit.
I thought Brandon Miller was phenomenal in the second half. I thought the first half we did a great job of executing a defensive game plan. We went under twice on him, and he hit 2 big threes. I mean, that's, that's what you need great players to do that are on your roster. It's a team that's playing with great confidence. They're fourth in the country. They won at Houston. I can't recall a home game that I've ever coached in that an opposing team had 36 free throws attempted. I know they had talked about all of our free throws last year, and this year we're at home and it happened. So, and I don't know if I've seen a foul 0.5 seconds either, but it is what it is. Alabama deserved to win. They went through that stretch that was way too much for us to overcome based on our lack of shooting and our lack of stretching the floor out. I mean, we take 10 3 balls attempted to their 20, so they took twice as many threes as us, and we only go to the line 23 times. So I don't know how that's I don't understand that. If we were taking a lot of three-point shots, I would understand it. But we got to take better care of the ball, too. I mean, we didn't shoot the ball well, and we had 15 turnovers and gave up 9 threes. So you add those factors in, and you're not going to win many basketball games. And it's hard to win right now when you're not making threes, which, I don't know if we will. And then our free throw percentage has got to improve as well.
Eric Musselman there. Some subtle hints at he was not a fan of some officiating last night.
It's the way to do it without getting Commissioner Greg Sankey or the Officials Association, whoever issues the fines out of the SEC office, without docking you a little bit of money. It's the best way to do it, just to talk about the free throws and the disparity between the two. Now, it was an ugly game. I mean, there was 45 foul calls. I believe one team had 23. I think Arkansas had 23 fouls. Bama had 22 fouls. That wasn't necessarily that crazy as far as who was whistled for the fouls, but Musselman was obviously a little peeved about the actual free throw attempts that Alabama got in the game. And then, of course, the foul late in the game with 0.5 to go. It was a legitimate foul. It's just I haven't seen it either. And so obviously this talk will get talked about for a long time between these two. But I mean, make no mistake about it, the free throw disparity was not the difference in the game. Bama still missed a bunch of free throws in the game anyways, and they still won the game by double digits, by 15 points. So it is interesting, but going into this, you thought that these two teams were probably a little bit closer. The Vegas line told you that it was. Vegas had actually Arkansas favored by 1. I thought Alabama was going to win a close game. I did not think Alabama was going to win by 15, but I also didn't think Bama would go into the half with 33 points. But they exploded in the second half and then really kept Arkansas to their first half production. Yeah. That was the difference. Yeah,
it was. And impressive performance by the Crimson Tide last night. You get a win over Arkansas. And Nate Oates, mentioned this. Arkansas was without their McDonald's All-American. Mm-hmm. Alabama was too, but Nick Smith is a big part of Arkansas's team. And when they get him back, it'll be a different ball game. But Alabama did good going in, close at times, but able to pull away. I think that shows a lot about this Alabama team.
Yeah, and I think the key word now with Nick Smith is if they get him back, because there's some rumors out there that he. It's not necessarily. I don't know if he's sitting out waiting for the NBA draft. I'm not going to postulate that. But there's a lot of people that are close to that program that think that he could be ready to be back relatively soon, if not be on the floor. Now we'll see. We'll see kind of where he is and what the team is. They will get a big boost offensively once he comes back into the game. He's good for close to 20 points per game. One of the best players in the country. But even still with him, I think Alabama's a deeper team. I think Alabama's a better team. They have a 1,000-point player coming off of their bench. So this to me is a team that's Alabama team that's rounded kind of into form. They've carried that hard hat mentality that Nate Oates wants them to take, doing the little things and taking pride in doing the little things. And that to me is a separator.
Yeah. And so Alabama gets the win at Arkansas, 84-69 last night there in Fayetteville. We'll jump to a break here. Joe Cox, columnist, SEC basketball columnist at Saturday Down South, will join us to talk some SEC hoops. We'll get his thoughts on the Tide and the other teams in the SEC. Brian Mintz at 3 o'clock. Elliot Galt at 3:30. Your phone calls coming up as well. It's all right here on WKXX Live. It is WKXX Live as we make our way through this Thursday afternoon. Chase Robinson, Gerhard Mathengani, we are here with you. And we've been talking about some SEC basketball. We're going to continue that conversation now. And to talk more with us, we welcome on Joe Cox, columnist with Saturday Down South. Joe, always great to talk with you. How are you today?
Doing okay. Always good to talk with you guys.
Well, it is the SEC basketball season. Good and rolling here, and looks as if Alabama, the best team in the conference. Your thoughts, just as you've seen the Crimson Tide and what they've been able to do. What impresses you most about this Alabama team?
Well, the balance, the competitiveness. They're much better on the backboard than I expected. But then, with Nate Oates, you're always going to have the shooting. And I've got their game breakdown here in front of me, and I'm going down the 3-point numbers. And 10 in this game, 10 in this game, 16 in this game, 8 in this game. They don't have nights where you can shut everybody down. And with the 3-point shot, the way that they play, it makes success almost inevitable.
Yeah, no doubt. Joe Gerhard here. One of the last games that Alabama played, I think, kind of raised everybody's eyebrows. Not necessarily that they won, but how they won was the Kentucky game not that long ago. And we've seen a whole bunch of stuff every now and again about Kentucky, and then Kentucky ended up losing again to South Carolina. As you look now at one of the blue bloods here of college basketball, what do you make of where the Wildcats are right now and some of the things that they might need to do in the future, both immediate and long term?
It's just a mess. It's a complete mess. I was in Lexington for that South Carolina game, and to say that Kentucky's not number 4 where they started the season, that's not shocking. But to trail wire to wire at home to probably the worst team in the SEC, that is the sort of thing that will get some people's attention. And then, as you mentioned, the Alabama game, losing to Alabama, the Tide are really good. There's no shame in that. But to just get steamrolled, there are real issues with this team. There's real issues with personnel. But more than that, I think there's real issues with chemistry. I mean, Oscar Tshiebwe, after that South Carolina game the other night, was calling out his teammates, saying, we've got to find some people who are going to play hard, who are going to play with intensity. And, you never like to have your best player calling out his teammates. That bespeaks the situation where things aren't going well. They've got to get more out of Cason Wallace. He had some back issues the other night. So the first thing is they got to get him healthy. But whatever their path is, it's going to be better with him than without him. But at this point, even with him, it's a tough road to hoe in the SEC.
Where's John Calipari in all this? I mean, I feel like the fans are, and I know when you lose, fans are quick to point fingers. But is the fan base losing trust in John Calipari?
Oh, I definitely think that that's the case. And, we're at a point now where you're going to see the articles about how crazy the Kentucky fans are and how unreasonable they are to be unhappy with Calipari. And it's a situation where I think we've got to recognize two things can be true. Kentucky's fans can be crazy, and they can be reasonable to be unhappy with John Calipari. It's not either or. I was trying to analogize to a friend, and I said, I think Alabama fans would be just as unhappy if Nick Saban, let's say hypothetically, went 4-8 in one year, and then the next year came back and was 10-1, but then lost to an FCS team and got knocked out of the playoff. And then the third year went 6-6 or 7-5. That really seems to be kind of where Kentucky basketball's been the last 3 years. I don't know that would get Saban run out of Tuscaloosa, but it would definitely have people less thrilled. I'll promise you that.
For sure. We talked about the top of the SEC with Alabama. The other top team that's undefeated right now is Tennessee. What do you make of the Vols, where they stand right now? This seems like it's kind of neck and neck with them and the Crimson Tide. Where do you see Tennessee right now?
I really like this Tennessee team. I mean, Alabama, I think, might be marginally more talented, but where Tennessee is going to be hard to beat, it's just that they do so much with defense. I looked a minute ago, and I saw for the season, only 3 times have they let the opponent shoot 40% against them. Now, if you're going to hold 85, 90% of the teams you play under 40% shooting, you're going to win a whole lot of games. They're very balanced. They don't have a Brandon Miller, but then who does? But the counterweighing thing here is Rick Barnes. I think Rick Barnes is a great coach. I think Tennessee's a great team. For whatever reason, it's just never really worked out for Rick Barnes in the month of March. I mean, he's been to a Final Four, but maybe this is his get-over-the-hump team. Tennessee's kind of been the same way. They've been good lately. They've been as good as anybody, but they've just not been able to win the big close game in March. Either they're going to break everybody's hearts again, or maybe it really is different this year.
We're talking college basketball with Joe Cox of Saturday Down South. Auburn goes to Athens, Georgia, loses. Did not look good for the Tigers. They're able to get a win over Arkansas. They got a win over Ole Miss. Do you see this Auburn team maybe on a upward trajectory than they were last Tuesday night in Athens?
You'd like to think so. The problem for Auburn is so much of what they do is guard heavy, and they have guards who can be just phenomenal. On a given night, they can be a top 10 team in the country, or on a given night, they could lose to South Carolina at home too. I mean, that would be in the realm of possibility for them. It's all about their guards, and their guards are good. They're just not the most consistent players in the world. Can they, tune that in and get a little bit more focused game to game? I mean, I think that's a pretty good bet with Bruce Pearl. They're the kind of team you're not going to want to run into in March, and maybe they're the last guy standing. We're looking at Alabama, we're looking at Tennessee. Auburn might be doing some really good work right now, and in a month, 6 weeks, they might be the team who you just go, holy smokes, don't want any part of them.
Yeah, continuing that, we talked a little bit yesterday with some people from down in Auburn and just how different this coaching job has to be for Bruce Pearl. What do you make of his adjustment to being able to do what kind of Nate Oates is doing right now, coaching NBA bodies, NBA talent, to having to kind of maneuver and work his chess pieces, so to speak, with this year's team?
If there's anybody who's well suited to the task, it is Bruce Pearl, though. You want a pure coach who can just take what you can give him and meld it into something. That's Bruce at his best. Last year, I think, was really more kind of the odd thing for him, in that, they go, okay, here, have maybe the best player in the country, have maybe the best interior defender in the low post in the country. That's the sort of thing he hasn't done before, and I think probably was strange to him. This year, he's in his element. I mean, he's a hoops guy. He'll take his 5 and give your 5 all you can handle, whether he's got great players or whether it is chess. He can play a few moves in that too.
Joe, just as we sit right now in SEC basketball, just kind of a big picture looking ahead to March, how many SEC teams do you see with an opportunity to make the NCAA tournament?
7-ish, you would think. I mean, granted, we're a long way away, but you would certainly think Alabama, Tennessee, Auburn, probably Arkansas, despite recent struggles, would all be pretty well locked in. After that, it gets a little shakier. Missouri had done really well. They've kind of backed off some. Kentucky would have to be on the outside of the bubble right now. Mississippi State had looked pretty good, but they've struggled. And Texas A&M kind of coming on. So, again, we had those first 4. You can just about underline and circle and yellow highlight them as in. I think you get 3 more, and I think we named 4 more teams. And watch, somebody will come out of nowhere. LSU, it could be that team. Florida has shown some signs, but I think you get 3 more in out of that group of 4, and then maybe 1 or 2 more surprise teams could be in that group, but maybe we get in there.
No doubt. I know we brought you on to talk some basketball. I want to sneak a football question in because we're on the heels of the national championship game. You've seen a lot of the teams out of the SEC East. You saw Georgia a lot. What did you make of what you saw Monday night? And maybe what it means for the immediate and long-term future for Georgia football?
Oh, wow. Just a complete explosion from them. And yet, really, this was kind of the Georgia team on some level I think everybody was looking for all year. I mean, watching them play, I know their game with Kentucky was 16-6, and it just never seemed like the gas pedal went down. Well, they put the gas pedal down, okay? And what happens when the gas pedal goes down is you realize they're incredibly well coached, they execute well, and they have maybe the best players in the country. How long is it sustainable? Well, the advantage that Kirby has over what Saban is dealing with now is just youth. You can see Kirby doing this for 10, 15, 20 more years with no real trouble there. I also don't think the NFL is going to look terribly attractive to him. Maybe it does. There's always an ego thing with incredibly successful coaches, and there's always money there. But I think he's doing pretty well in Athens. Who's going to knock him off? Ohio State was the one team this year that I thought really had a chance and gave him a heck of a game. But there's just not very many teams that are going to be in their league. And looking at their schedule for next year, it's a long way away. But gosh, they'd have to be a prohibitive favorite to be right back in the playoff again.
Yeah, for sure. He is Joe Cox, Saturday Down South columnist. Joe, we appreciate you coming on. Appreciate all the times you have come on and talked SEC. I know we had you on talk baseball some last year, basketball. So we really appreciate you taking time and joining us here on WKXX Live.
Always glad to talk with you guys. Y'all take care, and looking forward to your next run.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe.
Joe Cox of Saturday Down South. Always enjoy talking with Joe. Great baseball mind as well. Had him on a lot to talk SEC baseball. He's written some books on baseball and pitching and perfect games. Really, really fascinating stuff. Joe Cox of Saturday Down South joins us this afternoon. We'll grab a timeout. More to come in a moment. Stick around.
The Furniture
It is WKXX Live, Fox Sports 102.9. Jason Gerhard with you Thursday afternoon. Our phone number, 256-413-1029. As we appreciate Joe Cox from Saturday Down South joining us. Joe is from Kentucky, so you could kind of hear the maybe a little frustration in the voice there when talking about the Kentucky Wildcats, but certainly not what Kentucky fans want to see.
He hit it on the head when he kind of put the mirror back in the football world, because we completely understood it as it related to a football topic, and in a football situation that we've had in the past here with some of the blue bloods here in our state and across the country, where you start to see basketball in a different light because that's the way the Kentucky fans are super passionate.
Let's go to the phones. We got Coach Short on with us. Coach, how are you today?
I'm doing fine. How y'all doing today?
Doing good.
Doing good. Okay, so this is actually a perfect time that you'd called, because we had a conversation. Debate's too strong of a word. We had a conversation about spring football, and it's something that we wanted to get to the air here. And it's about the growing trend in high school sports. Now that you have a broken up calendar, you could either do a spring schedule, or you could just bump up your fall schedule a week early and do it. And I said, you know what? One of the best people that could talk about this is Coach Short, and he joins us now. First of all, Coach, what are your overall thoughts? I have mine, and I'll share those in a moment. What are your thoughts on, number one, what teams and coaches should do, and then secondly, where you see the trend of the sport going in general?
Well, hey, we're only, just hard to believe, but we're only 45 to 60 days out from college spring training.
That's right. So, that's right.
You know, it never ends here in the state of Alabama or in the South. You know, this is my fourth year being retired, but I still keep up with ball and rules and regulations, help out with some of the rules and regulations of the state. You know, it's my ideas used to be always, I'm an old school guy. Hey, we're going to play our spring ball. We're going to play a game. But a lot of those things change. A lot of it has to do with the size of school that you're at. You know, a lot of your kids may play multiple sports. If you're a school and you happen to be very good in baseball, track and field, then it would be hard to even find a time to do it. Take Piedmont, for example. Piedmont doesn't have spring practice, never do. But over the years, you would always wonder, why does that not hurt it? But with our new rules that we have in place and the amount of stuff that you can do in the summer now, it makes it a lot easier. So in the spring, you got 20 days once your calendar starts. You got 20 days to get in 10 practices, and that is including a game. Okay, so you really would practice 9 days and then play a game. And what most of the guys do is they take those 10 days and they spread them out. They don't do back-to-back days, which is smart because, you know, the rules for the summer is when we start practice in the fall, they make you do a bunch of acclimation days, like you haven't done anything all summer.
Right.
Well, they make you do 3 or 4 days to get acclimated to the heat, but in the spring you can just go out there and put your helmets on and start killing each other.
That's a good point. I never thought about that.
Makes sense to me. So, you know, we go out and we got those days and we can get a game in. So, but you can decide not to play a game. You can play a game in the spring, and you can play a game in the fall now. That used to not be that way. But if you don't play a game in the spring, then you can do practice, but don't play a game. Then you can start a week earlier in the fall.
Right.
So a lot of guys like being able to go a week earlier in the fall. Now, I wonder why, and here's why. Is because of all you can do in the summer with your OTAs, your 7-on-7s, your 11-on-11s. I mean, you can practice all summer long. No, you don't have equipment. You got a helmet that you can wear. But look how much you can get put in and installed in the summer. That's all you're going to do that extra week anyway.
Right.
I mean, that's all you're going to do. Now, look at the injury standpoint. If a kid gets hurt in the spring, and if he has an ACL tear, he's probably finished anyway. He might not be, but a lot of times he may be finished. But if you have a AC tear in the spring or a bad injury, you know he's done, he's finished, and you got all summer to fix it. But what if that happens in that extra game in the fall?
Right.
And now you don't have time to fix it. So that's another pros and cons, you know, to spring practice. there's something that is going on now that a lot of the high schools are doing. You have, and this is in every sport, let's say in the spring. Once we started back to school last week, I have 2 hours a week that I actually can practice with my kids, not with pads, not helmets or anything like that. But I can take a kid that doesn't play another sport. So if he's playing basketball right now, he can't be involved in this. But when basketball is over and he doesn't play anything else, he can get involved. I have those kids 2 hours a week after school that I can do sports-related things like football. We can go out and throw. We can run routes. I mean, we can do anything you can do in practice without a helmet.
Right.
And you can do that for 2 hours. So what these coaches are doing, some of them are just doing it. I mean, that if they skip spring practice, well, okay, but they're really practicing. I mean, it's not no 2 hours a day, but you can take 2 hours and do 4 30-minute sessions, and you can break them up. My offensive guys come out for 2 days, and then the defensive guys come out for 2 days. Or if you're a small school, you may just want to come out for 4 days, 30 extra minutes. You go out and practice football.
Mm-hmm.
I could do it into 2 sessions, like a Monday, Wednesday, or a Tuesday, Thursday, and just come out and for an hour we're working on football stuff each day. 1 week, one day may be offense, one day may be defense. That's what the first year that Coach Adams came to Oxford, that's what he did for his spring practice. People say he didn't have spring practice. Well, he spent the whole time that he could have been having a spring practice, he was installing every day.
Right.
That's what it does. So that's what you use that as. It's every day of installing. Man, I wish they'd have had that when I was there, or when I was practicing, because you could use that. Your linemen, a lot of your linemen don't play baseball. They don't play basketball, so they could actually be working after school for 2 hours a week.
Right.
That's actually not a time in the off season that you can work with a kid. Actually doing, I mean, you can have a ball out there. It's not just drills without a ball. You can have a ball. We can be throwing and catching. Blocking dummies. I mean, there's a lot done now that used to not could do, and I think a lot of these guys are taking that, and that's why they're kind of backing down on doing spring practice in the spring, because they can do those things. So that's just new that started last year that football coaches are doing. So if you see some football coaches going away from spring practice, it may be a lot because they're doing the 2 hours a day or 2 hours a week after school, and they think that's enough for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's really interesting because then you can still get the same amount of work in without having to hit or to use up days not efficiently, because as you talked about, the spring schedule is really tight anyways. And I've always thought that was interesting. And I mean, just the way that we've seen the players negotiate the contracts in the NFL, where they basically now they just run around in shorts until training camp comes. And then in college football, you have 14 practices and then the 8A or whatever spring game that you have. I've always thought that the spring season in high school has always been interesting because, as you mentioned, you're dealing with a lot of kids who are playing a lot of different sports.
Well, you gotta. I know the old school coaches are thinking we got to hit. But so many schools now are taking on the pro model, and because by rule the state says there's only so many times a week you can hit. Now that gets bent. That's probably the most bended rule in America. But if you think about it, I mean, we're going to have to start. Look at Tua. He may not even play football ever again. I mean, just be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because of head injury. So we're going to have to start taking it serious, and we got to figure out, how do we still going to be a good physical football team? And I hear a lot of coaches argue, says, well, tackling's got worse and worse. And it has. But you know what? Everybody's got worse and worse.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're getting ahead of me.
Right.
So we just don't tackle as well. What you got to figure out in football is where everybody misses out. Is we used to always say you got to be a great individual tackler, and that's why the spread offenses got so good, because they force you to be an individual tackler
in space.
But we got to a space tackler, and we got to figure out how to get more people to the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then you don't have to worry about that one-on-one big-time contact. So, and here's the other thing that I would do if I was coaching today. 30 minutes a week, we would work on team kicking game. I know you knew I was going to say
Oh
that,
yeah.
but,
Oh, yeah.
but how many games are won and lost off of a kicking game?
Yep. A missed assignment on a block, a missed assignment on a punt return, a holding on a fourth down situation where it makes your field goal 5 yards further out. Yeah, I mean games are, and we see it Friday to Sunday.
Well, I was going to say, especially in high school, especially early in the year, they tend to not work on it. But now that you can do so much in the summer, there's no excuse for a team to not have all their kicking game done and be real good at it before the season even starts, because you can do it every day all summer long.
Exactly.
I mean, it can be done. So there's no excuse not to do it. They're not doing it. They're just being lazy.
Yep.
But the spring practice, everybody kind of does it different. I understand both sides. But if I was doing it today, we would practice probably 9 days and not play a game and then start early in the summer, that week earlier.
Right.
And really the week earlier, the reason I would do it a week earlier is because what I'd probably do is that last week of July, I would give them an extra week off before we got started.
Oh, yeah. Just, refresher week.
You just get away from here. Get away from me. I don't want to see you. You don't want to see me. Then we're going to come back an extra week early and get started and go.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Coach, we have got to jump to a break for the top of the hour. Appreciate you calling in today.
All right, buddy. I appreciate it. Thank you. And y'all stay weather safe.
Thanks,
You too,
Coach. You too.
We will jump to a break here. Brian Mintz of the Etowah County Fellowship of Christian Athletes is next.
This week at Premier Cinema 6.
It is hour number 2 on a Thursday. Chase Robinson, Gerhard Mathengani. We are ready to go for another hour here on Fox Sports 102.9. You can listen to us, of course, on 102.9, also WKXX.com. You can listen on online there. We got the YouTube and Facebook live streams going. And right now we're excited to have on our friend Brian Mintz. He is the area director of the Etowah County Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Brian, always great to talk with you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hey, I just got a little AC/DC thunderstruck intro right there. That is so awesome.
There you go. We gotta get you pumped up to talk with us. So tell us.
Get us cranked up for some FCA. I like it.
That's right. So how things been going? As got the new semester started, I know, and new year. How are things with FCA?
We are getting everything cranked back up, and we're off to a really good start. And I just want to thank everyone. We had I had kind of set a goal of December ending, and we've got so many wonderful monthly donors, AMPs, which are just automatic monthly partners, who have made themselves supporters of our FCA ministry. But at the end of the year, I had set a goal to raise an additional $5,000 beyond what we normally take in. And, hey, God just really blessed us. And I think that I've still got some, believe it or not, I got notification yesterday of some money I didn't even know of. So we're going to be like over $7,500, I think, that we've taken in, just like, and most of that, believe it or not, was on December the 31st, just like I had previously said. So many people giving at the end of the year. And, hey, we're just so thankful for that. And I don't want to talk about money so much, just the fact that God has blessed us and we're making use of the resources that He's given us, and that's so important for us to be able to do ministry.
Yeah, no doubt. I know you just said you don't want to talk about the money aspect, but the one good thing is that it goes to such a great cause, and it goes to such great causes that help aid FCA. If you could just tell people how, where those dollars are going and being able to really help fund the mission that is the Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Well, I mean, the events that we do, and just daily expenses, plus every time we put a Bible in an athlete's hand, we give those away. And the Bibles, the T-shirts, the meals, I'll have occasionally someone will come up and say, hey, we would like to buy breakfast for the FCA huddle at X high school or middle school, whatever. But so oftentimes, that's money that's coming out of our account, when we don't get donors that are specific to that. So we buy, really and truly, we're a hospitality ministry because, if a biscuit will get someone to come and hear the Word of God, we'll buy biscuits, that's it, bottom line. And so everything that we do is an expenditure that comes from the money that we raise. And like we say, hey, it's all donor supported. So
we're talking with Brian Mintz of the Etowah County Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And have you had a chance to get out to some of the campus huddles and such since the semester started?
Yes. Yesterday I was at Rainbow Middle School, and I've been at Southside High School and a couple of the other schools. But Rainbow Middle yesterday, we had one of the student speakers, and she probably had a little bit of, I don't know what happened. Sometimes in the morning we're running a little late or whatever. So anyway, to cover, I got to share. I had something that was kind of on my heart. So last minute, kind of coming in, I was a sub. Okay, I was a sub. I had to come off the bench right there for that. But I got to share, and I just, I enjoy sharing. And so whenever I get an opportunity to do that, I do. But, we want to be student led to the majority of the time, and occasionally, some of our huddle coaches and stuff, they'll have someone come in as a guest and stuff, and that's good. But the students, they like to hear from other students, and I think it's refreshing to hear from another student and know that other student is facing some of the same problems and have some discussion about that kind of thing and the things that are interesting to them, that is relevant to their lives as in this case, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. But that may be high school or so. I know whenever I'm in a Bible study or whatever, I like to participate and be able to share and stuff. And usually whenever I'm teaching, I make it a sharing experience rather than just someone lecturing. And that, I think, makes it more enjoyable. At least it does to me. So.
Yeah, no doubt, and I'm sure it does, and it's really rewarding. At the same time, too, you've been with FCA for a really long time. As you take a look at the current generation, what are some of the things when they share their testimony, when they share their story? What are some of the things that they're sharing now? You don't have to give specifics, but just some of the things they're sharing now as compared to when you were in it or when you first got started in it. From the adult side, maybe the challenges that you're seeing right now from today's youth.
Well, I don't know that the students that are pretty well-grounded Christians, I don't know that they face a lot of the problems that I see in society with this generation. And the other thing is we live here in the heart of the Bible Belt. So I think that we're, at least till now, immune to some of the things that are going on throughout our nation. We don't see a lot of the identity problems, and I'll just kind of leave that at that. But we don't see a lot of that. There is a little minute bit, but not a lot. And so those are some of the things that I think that young people face. And two, I think that they're just over burdened, I guess, or with social media and with those type things. And here's the thing is, I think even for us as adults that, when we look at social media and stuff and you're watching the highlight film, of someone's life, a photo, a highlight, and you sit there and as you scroll, you're thinking, hey, everyone's life is so much better than mine. They don't post the problems that they faced in the day or the come apart and when everything falls apart. They're posting the highlight. And then, I think that a lot of young people are struggling to appearances, to look a certain way, whether that's diet or whatever that is. I think that those are some of the issues that face young people that maybe we didn't as much when we were coming along. And but those peer pressures are always with those young people through their phones and social media, and they're carrying peer pressure with them in their pocket.
Yeah, that's very true. And Brian Mintz joining us, Fellowship of Christian Athletes here at Etowah County. And Brian, it has been so great to talk to you. We've talked to you a lot over the course of our time here hosting this show on Fox Sports 102.9, and we appreciate you for being willing to come on and share. And always great to talk with you, and we appreciate you coming on with us today.
Well, hey, I just want to tell you, Chase, I appreciate the opportunity. I was just thinking about a little bit ago before we came on. I think we've been doing this for nearly 2 years now. I know it doesn't seem like that, but I think we have.
Yeah, we have.
Man, I just appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about what we're doing with FCA, and anytime we get an opportunity to share the victory that we have through the gospel of Jesus Christ is awesome. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we'll see you around, but appreciate your time. Brian Mintz, he is the area director of the Etowah County Fellowship of Christian Athletes. We'll jump to a break. More WKXX live in a moment.
Each moment of courage.
It is WKXX Live, Fox Sports 102.9. Jason Gerhard here with you. 256-413-1029 is our phone number if you'd like to call in and be a part of the show. We will get to your phone calls. And, the NFL, so much going on as far as the coaching carousel. Obviously, we've mentioned this quite a bit with Jim Harbaugh's name being thrown out there, and some other coaches. Sean Payton's name I've seen out there, and we talked a little bit the other day about D'Amico Ryans and maybe the possibility of him one day being a head coach.
He's right now the leading candidate in a lot of people's minds to grab one of these head coaching positions. Former Alabama linebacker, played his football not too far away from here, over in the Bessemer area, played at Jess Lanier, then went on to play at Alabama right before Nick Saban got there. I'm sure Nick Saban would have wanted him. He was a 3-star prospect coming out of high school, went to Alabama, and became basically really a household name, a leader of that defense. You could tell he's smart. He was athletic. He wasn't the most athletic guy, not even in his own linebacker room, but he was really, really smart, really competitive. Earned a spot in the NFL, played a really long time in the NFL, and then has worked his way up the ranks as a NFL assistant coach.
Yeah.
And now he's sitting at the right hand of Kyle Shanahan, who a lot of people think is probably the best coach right now in the NFL, period, considering what he's doing with a third-string quarterback.
Yeah.
Probably the number one team right now in the NFL. And so you have Kyle Shanahan and D'Amico Ryans. That defense is unbelievable in San Francisco, where he is with the 49ers right now. They've had some injuries and whatnot, but he's led them. And so, deservingly so, he's now considered one of these hotshot assistant coaches that's in line to be a head coach in the NFL.
Yeah, and like you said, he's learning from the best right now, and he is, I think, in a good position to be a head coach. And he's in the midst of the playoffs right now, though, and so that's where his mind is at. But of course, he's being asked about the head coaching potential.
Yeah, at every turn he keeps saying that they're focused on the playoffs. They're focused on being able to try to get a win in the divisional round coming up this weekend, and then moving forward from there. But at the same time, they understand and they know that they're one of the favorites to win it. But he did talk about the aspect of being one of the guys that is considered one of the top people at his profession and being a candidate for one of these vacancies.
It's very humbling to be able to get requests for head coaching interviews, right? It's humbling when you think about a lot of guys who've coached before me and a lot of guys who put in a lot of years, like a guy like Bobby Turner comes to mind and all of the years he put in. So I think about guys like that and them not being able to get the opportunity, and me, truly being able to go represent for them. And that's what it means. It means a lot for the other guys that have been before me. And it's special to be able to be in a select group, to have head coaching interviews and people requesting. It's a special moment. It's a proud moment. And I'm very thankful and grateful just to be spoken of in that light. And so I'm very, very humble, very grateful for those opportunities.
That's got to be cool as a coach when you've worked your way up to be a very good defensive coordinator, but to now get the request that teams want to interview you for a head job, that's I can see how special that is.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is it's Mike Lombardi, a really good friend of Bill Belichick. Nick Saban knows him really well. He was a former GM in the NFL. He has this saying I'll attribute to him because I think it's one of the great things. He talks about the NFL coaching ranks. Everybody loves football. We talked to Coach Michael Short moments ago, guys that are just really great at this profession. You talk about Nick Saban and the guys that coach football. Well, when you think about it, football's highest level has 32 jobs. There's only 32 of those positions open. It's actually easier to be a senator, 50 spots, than it is to be a NFL head coach. It's more exclusive. That club is more exclusive. Now, if you're the Arizona Cardinals and you run through one, every 3 or 4 years, it opens the door a little bit more.
Right.
However, but he talked about that aspect of it, and I think I'm right there with you. I think just to even be considered one of the guys that's in that profession, to be considered for one of those top jobs, has to be really humbling and almost kind of a crowning achievement to a life spent in the game.
Yeah, it does, and maybe he'll get a shot. I'd like to see him get a shot.
Yeah.
I think several of these teams in the positions where they're at. I mean, it's just up from here. Might as well shoot the shot.
Yeah. And the NFL it's a tricky ball game, and Nick Saban found this out whenever he wanted Drew Brees, and he really, really wanted Drew Brees to be the Miami Dolphins head coach, the Miami Dolphins quarterback while he was the head coach. Drew Brees didn't pass his physical, and the rest is history from there. And ended up winning a Super Bowl. And who knows what would have happened if Nick Saban would still be in the NFL? If the Patriots dynasty wouldn't have happened. And just there's so many factors that have to fall in place to be a coach in the NFL. So D'Amico will have his chances to be a head coach, and he'll have his pick of what team he wants to go to, more or less. I mean, there's obviously has to be some mutual agreement and understanding with the ownership group, but I think that a lot of people will be really interested in what he has to say, considering he sat at the right hand of Kyle Shanahan for a really long time. I know people want to go offense right now, and it's kind of an offensive league, but considering his proximity to Kyle Shanahan, I trust D'Amico Ryans to know what a good offensive mind looks like and be able to hire one as his OC.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. We're still waiting to see what other coaches may be getting requests to interview with certain jobs. Jim Harbaugh, like we mentioned, interviewing with the Broncos. We know Sean Payton being requested to interview with some of these teams. And those are two really good coaches that could end up with one of these vacancies.
One has won a Super Bowl. One has been to a Super Bowl. If you think of the two, Sean Payton's probably the more attractive guy right now because he's been in the league a lot longer. Jim Harbaugh spent the last few years in college football, but you understand Jim Harbaugh was a player in the NFL and he coached in the NFL and he went to a Super Bowl. It's I'm not saying it's going to be like riding a bike, but I'm pretty sure he'll be able to acclimate really quickly.
Yeah.
NFL game is about your starting quarterback. And that's the big thing about getting one of these jobs. You better either have a quarterback secure or the team better have a really good plan about what they're going to do at quarterback. This year's really interesting because there's a lot of quarterback hungry football teams out there, and they need to maneuver with the top team right now with the Chicago Bears in order to get that top spot, in order to get the quarterback that you want, unless you just want somebody to fall to you. Bryce Young's out there, CJ Stroud's out there. There's going to be a lot of talk between now and draft day about who should be the overall starting quarterback. Doesn't really matter who should be the overall starting quarterback. Can you develop that guy? Yeah. And I believe that both Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh will take a really measured approach before just diving into another job, because all jobs are not created equal.
Yeah, that's for sure. And so we'll keep an eye out on that. And playoffs, the wild card begins this weekend. I think we should see some really good games. Of course, we'll go more in depth on those games tomorrow, but I'm excited about some of these wild card matchups.
Yeah, there's a lot of games that are repeats of regular season games, which I find really interesting. Some games are games that are being played for the third time. You think about a team like Miami playing Buffalo. Now I know Miami will be a little bit hampered there without playing with the former Alabama quarterback and their starter Tua Tagovailoa, who had a great season before the head injuries. But, I mean, this is a really interesting playoff scenario, because you have a couple of upsets that might be looming there in the mix. I think specifically about that LA Chargers versus the Jacksonville Jaguars game. You got Tom Brady, who's the greatest of all time. He's an underdog to the Dallas Cowboys, but they're playing that game in Tampa. There's a lot of different storylines here. I think this weekend, we always get some weird thing to happen in the NFL playoffs. So there's going to be if you can bank on one thing, that there's going to be something weird that happens, and it would be interesting to see which one it is this time around.
Yeah, for sure. And so wild card weekend, we're going to preview the NFL a lot coming up tomorrow, getting ready for the weekend and for the playoffs. And you never know, with it being our last show, we may predict the Super Bowl. You never know. We're not going to get to pick any more NFL games. We coming up, though, we'll have our weekly Weiss Lake fishing report for the last time with Elliot Galt of Weiss Lake Tackle and Outdoors. Stick around for that. And if you did miss our announcement earlier this week, tomorrow is our last show here on Fox Sports 102.9. We'll also let you know what you will be hearing beginning Monday here on WKXX 102.9. So be listening for that announcement. But tomorrow is our final WKXX Live. So we hope you make plans to join us as we'll kind of talk about some of the things we've done here on the show and memories over the last year and a half, close to 2 years we've been doing this show. But we'll do lots of that and hopefully hear from you coming up on the show tomorrow. But we will have our weekly Weiss Lake fishing report coming up after this break. Elliot Galt will join us. We'll take your phone calls later in the show today as well. All that is to come. Stick around. It is WKXX Live on Fox Sports 102.9.
The Press Box.
Live, Fox Sports 1029. Jason Gerhard here with you on this Thursday afternoon. And we will be joined here momentarily by Elliot Gaunt of Weiss Lake Tackle and Outdoor for our weekly Weiss Lake Fishing Report. It'll be our last conversation with Elliot. As we wrap up WKXX Live tomorrow. It'll be our final show, and we hope you make plans to join us for our last show tomorrow from 2 to 4. We've got an interesting story coming up I'm looking forward to getting to in our last segment about someone you've probably heard of, just not in light of what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
Which I'm looking forward to hearing about that. Excuse me, but Elliot Gaunt will join us here in just a few minutes. We've been doing this weekly Weiss Lake Fishing Report since really after a couple of weeks of the show starting. So we've been doing this for well over a year, and so this will be our final Weiss Lake Fishing Report when Elliot joins us here in just a few minutes. But I think back, and even in the time you've been on with us, we've had some really great guests.
Yeah.
And the folks are so kind to take time. They get a lot of these requests, but they make time to do them.
Yeah, most certainly. And it just, we'll have obviously a lot of appreciation to share tomorrow, but it is really just, it's humbling to be able to get and to lean on these people that are in the field and doing it, whether it's the coaches or reporters that are feet on the ground, boots on the ground, so to speak, to the teams and to the places that we talk about and that we cover as well. So it's obviously, great for us to be able to get the content, but also, it's great to also be able to share that fellowship, to share that communion, to share the love and the passion for sports. This is kind of the breeding ground for all of us who love sports, and especially when you do it in this format, you really love all sports. I mean, obviously, being in the South and me being a football guy, you being a football guy as well, we understand that what kind of drives our passions, but we have lots of basketball passions and baseball passions and softball, golf. I'm a huge golf fan, tennis fan as well. So it's just one of those where it's just great to always talk to these people that are kind of boots on the ground, like I said, so to speak. And even with Elliot, with things that are just outside the periphery of what we call traditional sports, to be able to shed some light on those worlds as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned golf, and this gets me off on a completely different train of thought. WWE has been bought, and originally yesterday the news came out that it was the Saudis who bought Live Golf.
Right.
But that is not the case, and we'll talk about that in just a second. As right now we welcome on for our weekly Weiss Lake Fishing Report, Elliot Gaunt with Weiss Lake Tackle and Outdoor. Elliot, how are you today?
I'm doing good, Chase. How are you?
Doing well, and so talk to us about how the fishing. I know a lot of rain today, so that may mess things up, but how's the fishing been?
Fishing's been relatively good. A lot of people complaining about the muddy water. We talked a little bit about that last week, but of course it's going to get even worse after the day. But it takes a while, a week or so, for the water to really return back to normal once we get a big rain like we did last week. And so it's still not recovered, and then we'll get something like today, and it's going to stay muddy for a little bit after the past week of weather we had. So the rain will definitely affect it, but as long as it's not single digit weather, people are still going out there catching a lot of good fish.
No doubt. Elliot Gerhard here. I wonder this, and this might be not something that but you might be able to talk to people or have heard from people who know. In light of what happened today, we had severe weather in a lot of different places. Tornadoes are obviously really big here. Whenever we do have one of these big weather events, whether it's tornadoes or whatever, that come across around lake water, is there anything that you see from as far as migrations to where the fish end up going? Does it bother anything that is underneath the surface, or is it all kind of relatively the same once you just get away from the severe weather and then you start hitting the water the next day?
Oh, fish definitely know when a front's coming in. we talk about post-frontal and pre-frontal conditions all the time. It 100% affects the way the fish bite and where they move to. It's not as much as you can really pattern them because every front's different, kind of. But they definitely react different to, storm fronts coming in, cold fronts coming in. They act just like deer. They move during cold fronts. They move during warming trends, and weather systems definitely make them bite different. So, sometimes you can get out there before a weather system and throw, just for example, a shag-colored crankbait, and they won't eat it good, and they'll just slap at it, and they're just not very keyed in on eating. Well, and then you go, post-frontal, and you may throw the same thing and absolutely wear them out. So it's really, you got to figure that out. It's hard to figure out when you got such changing weather conditions like we do in Alabama from day to day. But definitely, usually the fish will feed up before a big front comes in. So like today, before a big weather system came in, yesterday would have been the day to be out on the water fishing. They usually will eat really good before a front comes in.
It's really interesting. Elliot Galt joining us from Weiss Lake Tackle and Outdoor. What are folks using right now to catch some fish?
Oh, selling a lot of crappie stuff here recently. The crappie fishing gets better as the spring comes to us, just like the bass fishing does. But there's probably a couple more crappie fishermen during the week than there is bass fishermen right now. Bass fishermen are getting out on their Fridays and Saturdays fishing tournaments, like the Weiss Lake Winter Trail. And there's I think there's one more trail that goes on during the winter over here on Weiss. But definitely more crappie fishermen throughout the week. Selling a lot of ACC crappie sticks, bonehead crappie jigs, Bobby Garland, stuff like that. So a lot of crappie fishing stuff going on, and then we're constantly adding to our bass fishing selection and rods and reels, and just we get an order in just about every other day. It seems like I'm posting on our Facebook page the new stuff we get in, and so it's got a great response to that. People really love to see the new stuff we got. That way they can come check it out.
Yeah, for sure. And so what are kind of the differences in what you need for crappie fishing and then bass fishing?
Well, just so the everyday angler, you can get away with going out there with a Zebco 33, putting 10-pound line on it, throwing a rooster tail around, and you're going to catch crappie, white bass, largemouth spots. It don't really matter. But if you're wanting to target a single species like crappie, you step down to lighter line. Most people use high-vis line, which is a yellow line that you can see a lot better because, a lot of people, you'll never feel that crappie bite. You see your line jump as you're reeling in a crappie jig. Crappie jigs weigh anywhere from 1/16 to 1/32. So really, really light stuff. So crappie fishing is a whole lot lighter than bass fishing. You'll go from using a medium heavy rod for bass to a ultra light rod for crappie fishing. So the action of the rod is more flimsy. It's hard to feel those bites because those crappie have paper thin mouths, so they don't just hit it really hard. So that high-vis line actually lets you see the bite when your line jumps, so you know you got a bite. A lot of people use 4 to 6 pound unless they're shooting around docks, and then they might use 6 to 8 pound. So it's a whole different ball game. The everyday crappie fisherman doesn't go out there and bass fish with the same gear. It's totally different from casting rods to spinning rods. Crappie fishermen will use up to a 12-foot rod depending on what they're doing. So it is completely different when it comes to gear, but that's why I rely on my crappie fishing guides around the lake and some of my crappie fishing buddies who really stay in tune with that crappie fishing stuff because I'm a bass fisherman, so I can help you all day long when it comes to bass fishing, but I rely on them heavily. So that's why we've started adding more and more selection to our crappie stuff.
Interesting stuff. Go by and see them. Weiss Lake Tackle and Outdoor, right off Cedar Bluff Road there in Center, is where you can find them to get all of your fishing gear. As I know, a lot of people now are going out and getting their stuff because fishing season's year round. I know, Elliot, but I'm sure pretty soon is when the bulk of the people will get their gear and get ready to go out for the spring.
Oh, yeah. Well, in Alabama, we have 70-degree days in December, January, February. But, yeah, when it comes to about the second week of February, it'll hit wide open, and people will start bass fishing, getting ready for the spawn, because that's everybody's favorite time to fish is the springtime for bass and crappie. So, weather's fishing goes with the weather, but the hardcore guys are going to do it all year round. But yeah, come February, it's gonna be wide open.
He is Elliot Galt, Weiss Lake Tackle and Outdoor, on our weekly Weiss Lake Fishing Report. Elliot, this is our last week of the show, so this is our last Weiss Lake Fishing Report here on the afternoon. So appreciate you coming on with us just about every week for the last year and a half or so. Enjoyed talking with you and appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you, Chase. I appreciate y'all having me.
Absolutely. Elliot Galt with Weiss Lake Tackle and Outdoor on our final Weiss Lake Fishing Report. We'll jump to a break. More to come here in a moment.
So you need a new
WKXX Live, Thursday afternoon. Hope you're having a good Thursday. Chase and Gerhard with you. 256-413-1029 is our phone number. 256-413-1029 will get you in to be a part of the show here on our final segment on a Thursday. Tomorrow, final show. So hope you make plans to join us. It'll be our last edition of WKXX Live. Let's go to the phone lines to start this segment. And there's Jeremy.
We got to keep the streak going for the last week.
Yeah, that's right.
Definitely.
I know y'all got to get your picks in tomorrow. I know you guys. Hopefully, y'all still gonna get your picks in and all that. And for this upcoming football, since it's the football Friday.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, I was just gonna make sure that I call in early enough. I want to be your last caller. I want to be the first and last.
For sure, yeah.
We will make sure that happens.
We can align that.
That'll just be fitting to have that happen.
Yes.
I was looking at I don't see the Dolphins and I don't see the Ravens coming out of this weekend. I just don't. With the questions around Tua's not playing, and then you have the questions about whether or not Lamar is going to be playing. I don't see the Ravens or them getting out of this weekend. I know the Bengals fans were upset with the way things, win of losing the game, not having it for home field or, having the chance for all that. But I don't think they've got a good thing here because now they've got the Ravens first round. So I wouldn't complain because you got them at the right time.
No doubt about it. And I'm right there with you. I definitely with Baltimore. I don't see that happening at all. Mainly because, as you mentioned, Lamar's out, but Lamar hasn't practiced in the last 17 days anyway. So even if he was back, who knows how effective he'd be. And then Huntley apparently has some tendonitis in his shoulder, in his throwing shoulder, so he's not throwing all week. And so, you're going to a third-string quarterback. I know he's played last week, but you're going to a third-string quarterback in your playoff game. I don't see that happening at all. And I think you're right. I think things have broken right for Cincinnati where, they can, get back to where they can come back and be able to play for another AFC championship.
Well, and you got to look at this too. You got to think about not everybody's got a Brock Purdy sitting on the sideline, third string quarterback.
Yep, right.
And even though they've had 10-game win streak, that kind of holds against the 49ers, and they're kind of in a because the past teams, I think they're like 1-7 when it comes to going in with a 10-game win streak, but it was all different conference. It's never happened. It really hasn't happened in their conference.
Right.
And so that's going to be something a little interesting to see how that plays off because, Geno might throw some magic out because Geno's looked pretty good this year.
Yeah, he did. Very surprising. I think a lot of people thought that team would tank.
Well, I'm hoping that I'm pulling. I want to see Brady do good. I want to see the 49ers do good. And I'm just very interested. I saw the coming out today, the reports where they showed that Derek Carr thanked the fans and he thanked and everything. And I don't know how I feel about the fact that I don't know, man. I keep hearing some stuff about Tom Brady going to the Raiders.
Yeah, that's the rumor.
And I've been hearing that, and I thought it was going to be like Heineke or somebody. I didn't think that he was going, to be honest with you, because I feel like the Trey Lance era of the San Francisco 49ers is done. They just haven't announced it yet because I think they're waiting till after the playoffs and after the Super Bowl to say anything about that because you don't want to be talking about that right now before, big games. You don't want to be talking about who's your quarterback going to be next year. And I just thought he was going to go to San Francisco. I didn't know if the relationship between him and McDaniel was that strong right now. And just kind of felt that seeing him going more to the 49ers than I did Las Vegas.
Yeah, and staying in the NFC, I think would be a bigger thing. Of why in the world would you want to go to Oakland, where you got to play Patrick Mahomes 2 times a year, and I mean, it's just such a tough division just every year just to get out of that. I mean, that to me is rough.
Right, and I mean the Chargers may be the Chargers, but they still pull games out in the year that in the division. There's times where it's like, oh, it's the Chargers, the Chiefs should beat them, and then the Chiefs lose 2 games to the Chargers that year.
Yep.
Or and it's kind of the same way with the Broncos. The Broncos have been that way the past couple of years. Like, oh, well, you should beat the Broncos, and then you drop 2 to them. And the Chiefs have had that happen to them. I don't think that if you're Tom Brady, you don't want that. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know why you'd want to leave Tampa Bay. To be honest with you, I think that he's in a good spot down there in a division that I still think that the Bucs could with him, if they go back and they do like they did the year they won the Super Bowl, I think that they could have another good couple of years with Brady.
Yeah, they'd have to solidify that offensive line. They lost so much there with Kappa going to the Bengals, and they have no running game. Right, they have no running game right now, and it really hurts him. That's why he has to throw 50 times a game. Another weird rumor I keep hearing is that if Miami punts on Tua, that he could go to Miami and join that high caliber team. But that would obviously make you play the Patriots twice a year, the Bills twice a year, the Jets who are coming on twice a year. I could see the fit as far as talent goes. I just don't see the fit as far as why in the world would you want to go play that division?
Yeah, exactly. And my favorite thing is this. I wish that when it comes to Brady, I sit back and I watch him, and I kind of want to see you when you picture him. You can picture him in a San Francisco uniform.
Yeah, you can.
You can picture him in a Dolphins uniform.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's certain teams where he's got that. He's that guy.
Yeah.
He's that guy, and he should be that guy.
I remember when Photoshop first came out on all these, now it's everywhere. You get a picture of Hugh Freeze is in Auburn, hat and vest, the second that he says that he's going to Auburn. But when all these things first came out, it was like, oh, you put a Photoshop jersey on and see if it looks right. And I remember even Brady with Tampa didn't look right, but he made it look right. But you're right about San Francisco. It just looks right in San Francisco. It also looks right in Dallas. Raiders, it just doesn't. Raiders just doesn't.
Yeah, no, it does not. It looks like he's playing for a movie football team.
That's a good comparison.
I mean, but I'm looking forward to this weekend. Like I haven't looked forward to NFL football in a while, and this weekend I'm kind of looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it's going to be especially having a Monday night ball game.
Mm-hmm.
That to me that's huge to have this game on Monday night and to have it's going to be a great weekend of football, and I think that if you're not NFL, you're going to love it because it's football. I mean, if you're a college fan more than you are anything else, it's not going to matter. Yeah, I don't think it's going to matter because I think that it's one of those situations where if you love football, you're going to love this weekend.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, it's a good point though that he's like that though, that you could picture him in other teams like that. But I just, now that Gisele's not in the picture, his decision making, I mean, Vegas could very well be in the picture just because of the fact that, hey, I ain't got no family living with me no more. I mean, he's Tom. He's like, I still look like I'm 30 years old. I'm going to go out here and have me a good time.
Exactly. Single guy out in Vegas with $200 million. That'd be a nice life.
I mean, buddy. I mean, he's got it made in the shade. Just as long as he don't try to use Bitcoin while he's gambling out there, I think he'll be all right.
Exactly.
But this whole I sent Chase a tongue-in-cheek picture there on Twitter, and just because I've watched that video, and that's just the one thing that stands out is him saying that about the cheese board.
Yeah. I saw that. Chase showed me that. That was hilarious.
And so, but you know what? I'm glad that he didn't get signed by anyone before the play because I felt like he didn't want to put in the time in the regular season. He wanted to find somebody that was going to be in the playoffs so that he could be in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
and not have to do the work during the rest of the year. Because how injured is he? You know what I mean? I mean, it's gotten to the point now where we're sitting here going, how injured are you? Yeah, sure, you had surgery, but do we actually know how bad it is with him? I just think it's his ego. I think he's about the same as Antonio Brown to this point. Why would you want him on your team?
Yeah, and take up one of your precious spots. I mean, you only got 52 of them.
Exactly, because why? Let's look at it this way. He was on the Rams. They go to the Super Bowl, and they win the Super Bowl, and he kind of was a key to that. He kind of did, he was a key to that win. So why do they not want you back?
Right.
Why are they not trying to get you back? I mean, that's the question that, to me, that says a lot. That says a lot, and it's one of those situations where you're like, I think we'd be better off if we didn't have him on our football team.
Yeah, I think that's probably what they're thinking. Jeremy, we got to get out of here. Appreciate your call. Look forward to talking to you tomorrow. We're not taking calls in the last segment tomorrow. That's all us.
Yeah.
So make sure you get your phone call in before the last segment.
I knew that was gonna be, and I can't wait to hear. I mean, because I know it's gonna be. I know you guys have got it, and I hope that out of this that this takes you go far with whatever you do after this. So I've enjoyed it. So thank you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to talking to you tomorrow.
Talk to you tomorrow.
That is all the time we have for you today. Join us tomorrow. It's going to be fun. It's our final 2 hours, our final show tomorrow from 2 to 4. Join us. We'll have some fun. We'll also let you know what WKXX is going to look like starting Monday. We'll do that tomorrow as well. Hope you join us. Have a great rest of your Thursday.
The Press Box. This is where the biggest